The annual Hospitality Expo and Conference has been held at Crown Perth during this week. The organisers have invited to Perth an international chef called Kevin Cherkas. Kevin's worked at some amazing restaurants, two of the greatest restaurants ever in the world, El Bulli and Arzac. They're both in Spain. They're both Michelin three-star restaurants. Kevin's also worked at the Michelin three-star restaurant Daniel in New York City and the Michelin two-star La Broche in Madrid in Spain. And he joins us now. G'day, Kevin.
Hey, good day. Good day.
Nice to talk to you. They're amazing restaurants for any chef to work in. How did you get to work in El Bulli and Arzac?
Sheer determination. I mean, getting into these types of restaurants obviously very, very difficult. Restaurants now overseas in Europe that have 2-3 Michelin stars, it's a bit like winning the lottery. I mean, a resume isn't going to do very much for you. I think one of the things that you need to do is just really never give up. I mean, it's on top of, you have to be willing to work for free, my friend. I mean, you don't get paid to work in these places. So sacrifice.
The legendary chef at El Bulli, Ferran Adrià, is he the genius that everyone makes him out to be?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I did the season of '06, I went back in '07. I mean, honest to God, the guy is incredibly special. He's quirky, he's different. I mean, he doesn't like to talk to people. He's very introverted. He's a bit of a philosopher. He's a very special man. Yeah. The answer would be yeah.
And what about Arzac? Because that's been, in some ways, at the time, in the day, it was a little in the shadow, wasn't it, of El Bulli?
Yeah, I mean, Arzac, Juan Marie, the chef, I mean, he's like the grandfather of food. So if you look in France, they have Paul Bocuse and then all the new chefs of today, where Juan Marie is really the grandfather of Spanish cooking. So I think El Bulli and these types of restaurants really wouldn't exist without that wicked base of traditional cooking that's available in Spain. And it's guys like Juan Marie that have drove that for centuries. His restaurant now is slightly more modern, but I mean, he's the foundation.
Were your ideas as a chef sort of fully formed by the time you got to those two great restaurants?
No. What I did is I learned how to cook. So from when I was young, I just learned how to cook, period, and learned as many different cooking techniques and styles as possible. And just when you think, now you understand French cooking, then all of a sudden you're out of your comfort zone, you start learning whatever, Japanese food. And then just when you start figuring that out, then Mexican food. So cooking is so diverse. So I learned how to cook. But going to Spain, it actually wasn't, learning how to cook. It was learning how to think differently about food. This is what Spain taught me.
So what sort of ideas were you galvanized to there?
Well, El Bulli is teaching you in Arzac. I mean, they're just looking at possibilities of ingredients. So, as everybody cuts a lemon in half, extracts the juice and makes lemonade, they're looking at the lemon thinking, what else can you do with this? So what you come out with is just the infinite possibilities that can be done with ingredients that you yourself are limited to only by imagination. So what ideas you can come up with there? Poof! I mean, how long's your show?
So, Kevin, was it after that you ended up at Daniel in New York, which is also a Michelin three-star?
Yeah, Daniel was my first stint. So left Canada, 21, ripped over to New York, worked there for a few years, and then headed from New York City basically to Spain. Daniel, a buddy in Vancouver, hooked me up with the opportunity to get in there. Daniel then opened the door to get into Arzac in Spain. And then from Arzac, I then went to La Broche. From La Broche, I eventually made it to El Bulli. It's a bit like Springboard. Kind of one chef has always helped me to get into the next place, and that was very important. So, never burning a bridge.
So you've now opened in Jimbaran Bay in Bali. You opened in July of 2013 there. What drew you to Bali?
Main reason would be our partner is from Indonesia. So because he's from Indonesia, we wanted to open our first project in Bali. I don't know if you've traveled around Indonesia, but Bali's not a bad place in Indonesia. So this for us was our first choice. But the main reason would be we just love the idea of having our own place. I mean, if the guy, our partner's a Chinese Indonesian, if he would have been full on Chinese, we'd be in Hong Kong. If he was a Brit, we'd be in London. So just circumstance. And obviously doing the first project in Indonesia, because he's Indonesian, we could move really fast. We didn't want to be talking about things for 2-3 years. We wanted to rock and roll.
The restaurant's called Cuca, is that the pronunciation?
Cuca, Cuca.
What style?
We do tapas, cocktails, desserts, Western cooking, local ingredients.
Yeah, and how do you go sourcing good produce in Bali?
So this is like, whenever you create a dish or anything by that means, in a restaurant what they do is they say, we're going to make a beef dish, and then where are we going to find the best beef? Or we're going to make apple pie, now where do we find apples? What we do is totally the contrary. So what we did is we spent 6 months scouring Indonesia for ingredients, and when we found ingredients that for us were truly world class, things like the octopus, cashew nuts, papayas, different types of spices, torched ginger blossom, whatever we found that we thought was amazing at an international level as far as a product goes, that went into a catalog of ingredients, and then from there, we built our menu around those spectacular ingredients. So, I guess it's a bit like what came first, the chicken or the egg. I mean, in this case, it's like Mr. Papaya is amazing. What are we going to do with papaya? So that's kind of how we came up with the menu in Cuca.
You've been running masterclasses at the Hospitality Expo here in Perth. What's been the message?
Taste everything you cook. Taste is important. Don't get carried away with decoration. It's a bit nonsense, really. Just the simple things done really well are so much better. I mean, we're focusing on taste. The idea of the masterclass is to force people to understand taste, and then obviously sweet, sour, salty, bitter aroma, and then be able to identify these tastes easily. So we basically do a 30-minute class where we force people to understand, banana not taste like banana. Banana is sweet. Coffee is bitter. Cheese is salty. So we categorize food, and then from there we allow them to build dishes without using recipes. So that's the class. It's how to make food without depending on recipes and be creative.
Kevin, a lot of chefs are taking a much more sort of environmental approach to their food, looking very carefully at the environmental issues around the produce that they use, where it comes from. Are you going down that route?
I think, to be honest, you have to. I mean, it's 2014. I mean, the ocean is not the same place it used to be. If you're just continuing to serve as a chef, the small population of fish that's now coming, basically, I wouldn't say extinction, but obviously there's fish in the ocean that is by no means sustainable. I mean, you shouldn't be serving it on your menus. And people that say that they should, well, what an unfortunate thing, because in a few years when there's no more of that fish, well, then people are going to start to realize that, you're totally, just raping the ocean of what it has. And the same thing for the land. So as a chef, I think you have to have a responsibility to serve food that is good for your guests and good for the earth. Otherwise, I don't think you're doing your job.
It's been great talking to you. Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Good on you. Kevin Cherkas. Kevin's restaurant in Jimbaran in Bali is called Cuca. For those of you who go up there, it certainly sounds like it would be great to visit. He's been talking here in WA at the Australian Hotels Association's Hospitality Expo and Conference, which was on at Crown Perth this week.